In this topic, we're going to be talking about the brand new Sonic the Hedgehog movie that's recently been announced by Sony.
6 years. That was me 6 years ago. We're finally making the video. This character means more to me than most people know. It was there for me when nobody else was. I've met great people around it. My life's almost been shaped around it in a healthy way. It's important to me. This movie's been through a lot. This film was originally developed at Sony, then people from Deadpool hopped onto the movie, and then the film got sold over to Paramount. There was the first teaser poster, which was a nightmare, and then the next trailer was even a bigger nightmare. And then the new trailer came out, and it's been pretty great ever since. So, did the Sonic the Hedgehog movie continue that positive streak? Let's find out. Sonic the Hedgehog movie is directed by Jeff Fowler. This is his first feature film. It stars Ben Schwartz as Sonic the Hedgehog, Jim Carrey as Dr. Eggman, and James Marsden as Tom Wachowski. The film starts off with Sonic as a very young child, a baby almost. We see what his life is like on there, and it gets dark, which will be a theme throughout this movie surprisingly. People are trying to kill Sonic. They're after his power, so he is sent to Earth, and it gives a very sci-fi, quite frankly, dark and interesting take on Sonic's background. Once when Sonic gets to Earth, you see a lot of what Sonic's life is like there. And this movie tackles a lot of issues, and the biggest issue, and the most surprising issue I would say, is mental health, loneliness, and depression. Sonic is lonely. He doesn't have any friends. He has to hide in the shadows. He's not really able to be seen. He's just by himself. He has to stay hidden. And it gets to him. You see it. He shows it. And I'm honestly very happy for a kid's movie that it tackles these issues. Not only does it tackle these issues, but in a subtle way. This animated character was able to emote those feelings of sadness and want and desire without needing to say it. And it really hits you at the baseball park. It starts off fun and funny. Sonic's just hanging out by himself, playing baseball by himself, but he's by himself and he's celebrating by himself and he's doing everything by himself. So when Sonic breaks down, you feel it. Sonic is honestly, it's so weird, and it's kind of sad to say, but Sonic's like a childhood friend to me. He's like a big brother, and seeing this character that you love, like I love Sonic, break down, it's emotional. And it wouldn't work without Ben Schwartz's performance. Ben Schwartz surprised the heck out of me. Now, I've actually seen Ben Schwartz in a lot of stuff. Parks and Recreation, which was a comedy. DuckTales, which is a cartoon comedy. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a cartoon comedy. Now, while this film is largely a comedy, and I know I'm not making it sound like that, I'm kind of making it sound like a dark drama. When it does get serious, when the film is sad, he's able to emote that and he's able to express that. And when Sonic causes his power surge, that's when Tom and Sonic meet. Specifically, James Marsden and Tika Sumpter. Before going into James Marsden, I do want to say, Tika Sumpter is barely in the movie. I'd say she's in the film for around 5, maybe to 10 minutes. She doesn't have a very large role, mainly because she doesn't really partake in the big road trip segment, but going back to James Marsden, I've greatly enjoyed a lot of James Marsden's work, specifically Westworld, Enchanted, and those first 2 X-Men movies. But from some of the clips and trailers, it looked kind of stale. James Marsden looked like he was playing every human sidekick character to Sonic. But I'm very shocked and happy to report that James Marsden takes this character and script further than what you might expect. He was honestly very funny in this movie, and he was able to play off of Sonic and was able to do a very surprising job with this sense of pity and sadness that he feels for this character, because Sonic is so lonely, and Sonic is like, you were my first friend. I've never had a friend before. I don't want this to end. And you can feel that James Marsden feels that. Now, what he can do on set while looking at tennis balls is very impressive. He's able to interact with nothing and deliver a really good performance. One of my biggest worries was resolved. The time you spend with Sonic and Tom is really fun. And that's one of the best things I can say about this movie. It's fun. It's so fun seeing this character that you've watched throughout the first act finally meet somebody, and you want to see that happen. You want to see Sonic meet somebody and find happiness and companionship. And when it happens, it's rewarding and it's fun, and the adventures they go on, and Sonic trying to figure out more about what humanity's like and what civilization and etiquette, really. It's not just funny, it's charming too. This film doesn't dumb itself down for the children audience. Now, this is a kids movie. I want to stress that. This is 100% a kids movie. Its PG rating says that explicitly, and Sonic very much is for kids. But this is no Alvin and the Chipmunks, this is no Garfield, this is no Smurfs. This isn't even Detective Pikachu. This movie doesn't always hold your hand, and it will make you have to understand what's going on at certain points. But this film doesn't only focus on James Marsden and Sonic. There is also an antagonist. Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. From the moment I heard this casting news in the car one summer, I was ecstatic. Thinking back to this character of who Eggman really is, if you look back on different Sonic the Hedgehog media, the source material, Eggman at the core is a really goofy character, but Eggman can be serious. But when they get Jim Carrey, I'm like, is he going to go that comedic direction that he did in the 90s? Or is he going to take a more serious role that he's been doing as of recent? And it's definitely 90s, and from the trailers you can definitely tell that. I wouldn't necessarily say that Jim Carrey's Eggman gets serious, but the character's so unhinged and egotistical and genius that there is this tension and that there is this anxiety that comes with watching and knowing what he's going to do next. Jim Carrey was one of these standouts in this movie, but I'm glad to say that Jim Carrey wasn't the best part of this movie. The best part of this movie was Sonic. I didn't come to watch an Eggman movie. I came to watch a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and it's great that we had a very fun, very entertaining antagonist, but it's even more fantastic that the protagonist was even better. When Robotnik is thrown into this story due to the power outage and the government recruiting him, it's this giant cat and mouse game. In the third act, which we'll get to later, is just a really big cat and mouse game. It's almost like a Tom and Jerry episode just on steroids. And those interactions between the two as you go from like the first act, second act, for a majority of it is really just Sonic trying to run away from Eggman. And those encounters are interesting because every encounter drives that story forward. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and get into the third act because it's very interesting. We eventually get to San Francisco, and the encounter between Sonic and Dr. Eggman happens. And this is where the third act happens, and the third act is just a blast. It's one of the most creative and interesting action sequences and climaxes you'll probably see in a theater, potentially all year. One of the creative liberties that this film takes is the rings. The rings are used not just as currency, because that's a video game thing, but they're used as portals. It's what gets Sonic to Earth, and they can be used throughout Earth. So it takes you all over the world, from San Francisco to Paris to the Great Wall of China to like Antarctica, the desert, everywhere. It's so visually interesting. The cinematography is really great, even though it's pretty much all done in a computer, it still looks very good. And the final destination is Green Hills, Montana. There's this standoff, like spaghetti western type thing, like a shootout almost. And they dive into that emotion that Sonic has, and it kind of ties in really well with the end. I won't spoil it, but it's really nice. The people of Green Hill band together, and the day is saved. Sonic sends Eggman to a specific place with one of those portals, I won't say where. That'll be saved for tomorrow's spoiler review. It's really cool. And there's more of it in the after credits, which is also something we'll get to later. The ending is very heartwarming. I love where it ends up. The film didn't take the heartbreak to the place where they could have took it. Now, I'm glad they didn't, because I would have been in an emotional wreck, but still. And that's where the story ends off. Now, this was largely positive, but this is not a flawless movie. I do want to go over a couple issues. First things first, there is some pacing issues. Now the pacing in the film now let me explain how this pacing was an issue. There are 3 acts in a movie. There's the first, second, and third. I feel like the first act is a little too short, and the second act is entirely too long. And the first act also applies to the third act. The third act was also extremely short. There's this cutoff to where it's like, oh, we're in the third act now. Okay, this wasn't as smooth of a transition as I would have liked. And it can make the film almost feel rushed just a bit. Not entirely, not sloppy. It can be sloppy in some areas, but slightly rushed. My other big issue is, I hate saying this, but the color grading. It's not a very pretty movie, and for something as colorful and bright as Sonic, it's very dull. Now the cinematographer for this film, I was kind of surprised to see who it was, and there was the cinematographer for a lot of the Fast and the Furious movies and Star Trek Beyond. Now those movies are very bright and colorful and vibrant, and they look really nice, but I honestly felt that this movie looked a lot like Deadpool. Very dull colors, not very that interesting in certain aspects, mainly on Earth. I will say that Sonic's planet is very bright and vivid and looks really nice, but there's also this grit to it, and they also apply that grit to Earth, and it just makes it look a little rusty and gray, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way this movie looked. I think they need to get a new cinematographer for the next film, or they need to make some adjustments with how the film just looks in terms of color and the way that it's lit. Maybe just more vibrant locations, because Montana isn't the most, beautiful place on the planet. Now, I'd say my other nitpick would be that not all of the jokes land. There are some cheap grabs at the kids, and don't get me wrong, I think that the kids will like it, but it definitely wasn't for me, and I don't think some of the adults will like some of those jokes, but a lot of them did hit, because it's a largely funny movie. And yeah, those are my negatives. So yeah, what are my final thoughts, and what do I think the future is? Well, let's find out. Sonic the Hedgehog 2020 is a really good movie. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, and it's not everything I hope out of a film, but it is thoroughly entertaining. It's heartfelt, it's humorous, it's creative, and all I could really have asked for. I'm not holding this film to the same standards as I would this year's Oscar films, but I also am holding it to a higher standard than I would these other CGI hybrid movies, and it thoroughly succeeded in everything I was hoping for. Every person involved in this movie delivered 100% in their performance. Ben Schwartz stole the show for me as Sonic. I know a lot of people will walk out of this movie saying Jim Carrey was the best part, and don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey is absolutely fantastic, but that Ben Schwartz as Sonic was so heartfelt, so everything I could have asked for. Ben Schwartz Sonic is the definitive Sonic. This is the greatest depiction of this character in history. I have never felt for Sonic. As much as I love this character, he's been there for me simply as a icon. I wouldn't say I've ever emotionally connected to this character and what's been going on with him in his storylines and other media, but this made me feel for Sonic and cry. This is the definitive Sonic, and it's going to be hard to beat. I don't see any other depiction of this character overtaking this for a long time. This will be the Sonic that everybody goes back to and says, yeah, that's Sonic. And you can still argue who the best Eggman is. Jim Carrey does provide a brand new take and depiction on this character that you haven't seen before, and it's very creative, entertaining, and interesting, and different. This is not the video game, and that's what I love about it. It's its own thing, and that's what we need, a breath of fresh air, and it's the best kind of fresh air. Is this the best video game movie ever made? Yes. Is this the best kids movie ever made? No. Is this the greatest thing to come out of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise in the past 10 years? Damn right. This is fantastic. I love this thing. I will be buying every piece of merchandise from this movie. This might as well just become a Sonic the Hedgehog movie wall. I am blown away. Jeff Fowler, if you're watching this, anybody involved with this movie, you did it. You did it. I also want to give a giant shout out to Patrick Casey and Josh Miller. They delivered a script that I didn't think they would deliver. It was one of my red flags. My prediction video earlier this week, I stated, I'm not sure about those writers. They haven't worked on a lot, but kudos. It's a flawed script, but it works. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie blew me away, and I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. This was my review of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Now this is within a week of me seeing it, so. And I didn't even get to go into the spoilers, and that's coming tomorrow. But I can't believe I finally did a Sonic the Hedgehog movie review. Thank you all so much for being on this journey with me. This is crazy. I've been waiting for this day for so long, and it's here, and I'm so glad that you guys are the ones who can be here with me, and I'm so blessed. I love all of you to death. This movie was fantastic. When you guys go to see this, I hope you enjoy it just as much as I did. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the spoiler review, and the days after when we talk about the future of this potential Sonic the Hedgehog movie franchise. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. What?